Are we ready to go? Okay. Good evening. It's March 10, 2021. It is now 5:30 p.m. My name is Jim Brewer. I'm the hearings officer for the City of Salem. Tonight on our agenda, we have one hearing. It is for conditional use Class 3 site plan review case number CUSPR 20-09. That's at 2960 3000 and 3010 Lansing Avenue Northeast. I'm going to outline the hearing proceedings for tonight. Of course, we're still conducting hearings virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So testimony from neighborhood associations, persons in favor, persons in opposition will be limited to those who signed in before 3 p.m. today. And I understand a couple of people, both the applicant and Mr. Gay, I believe, have done that. The order of tonight's procedures will be a staff report presented by Sally Long. The applicant's presentation, we'll limit that to 15 minutes. You don't have to use all of that time. A neighborhood report, if any, and it doesn't look like anybody signed up to do one, but that would be limited to 10 minutes. Then we'll take the testimony of people who signed in before 3 p.m. today. We'll ask people who are giving testimony, this includes the applicant, to give their name and their address so that the recording can pick it up. We'll let people who wish to speak in favor of the application go first. We'll limit their testimony tonight to 5 minutes. Then we'll go to testimony in opposition, again limited to 5 minutes. Then we'll go to neutral testimony for 5 minutes. After that, the applicant gets an opportunity for rebuttal. That is limited in scope to issues that were raised in opposition, and that'll be limited to 5 minutes as well. At that point, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll ask the applicant whether or not they want an additional 7 days to provide additional written argument. Won't be new evidence. I do want to direct your attention to the applicable criteria that were found in the notice and the staff report. The testimony and evidence for the public hearing tonight must be directed towards these criteria because they're all that I can use to make this decision. So this is a conditional use permit and Class 3 site plan review. SRC Chapter 240.005D states that an application for a conditional use permit shall be granted if all of the following criteria are met. 1, the proposed use is allowed as a conditional use in the zone. 2, the reasonably likely adverse impacts of the use on the immediate neighborhood can be minimized through the imposition of conditions. And 3, the proposed use will be reasonably compatible with and have minimal impact on the livability or appropriate development of surrounding property. There's an unreasonable hardship or practical difficulty created by the, well, but that's something different. I'm sorry. The Class 3 site plan review, SRC 220.005 F3 states that an application for Class 3 site plan review shall be granted if A, the application meets all the applicable standards of the UDC, B, the transportation system provides for the safe, orderly, and efficient circulation of traffic into and out of the proposed development, and negative impacts of the transportation system are mitigated adequately, C, parking areas and driveways are designated to facilitate safe and efficient movement of vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians, and D, the proposed development will be adequately served with city water, sewer, stormwater facilities, and other utilities appropriate to the nature of the development. This is the time when I need to remind people that failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city or other parties the opportunities to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the State Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes inaction for damages in circuit court. For everyone, this means that this is the time and place to raise the issues that concern you, and if you don't do that, you may not be able to later. I do want to ask the people who have signed up tonight, are there any objections on jurisdictional grounds on the holding of this hearing? That means very simply, this isn't the sort of thing that ought to be in front of the hearings officer. It ought to be in front of the planning commission or the city council instead. I'm not seeing anybody come up and do something. This is case number CUSPR 20-09, 2960, 3000, and 3010 Lansing Avenue Northeast. May we have the staff report, Ms. Long?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and you guys make sure and let me know you can see it okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to do a little rearranging here. Okay. So good evening. I'm Sally Long, Planner 1 with the Community Development Department. We are here for conditional use and Class 3 site plan review case number CUSPR 20-09 for a proposal to allow expansion of an existing religious assembly use for property located at 2960 through 3010 Lansing Avenue Northeast. I would like to request that the staff report, attachments, and presentation be entered into the record, as well as one letter from a surrounding property owner that we received after the staff report was issued.
And that's the letter for Mr. Gay?
Correct.
Okay, yes, those will all be answered. Thank you.
Great. The proposal is for construction of a new fellowship building to replace the original fellowship building damaged in a fire for an existing church. The conditional use is required because the property itself does not meet the special use standards in Chapter 700 as outlined in the staff report. The application was filed on November 25th, 2020. At the applicant's request, the consolidated applications were deemed complete for processing on February 9th, 2021. The subject property includes 3 parcels shown in blue and is approximately 3.8 acres in size. The property abuts Lansing Avenue Northeast, a collector street to the west, Watson Avenue Northeast, a local street to the east, and Sorensen Court Northeast, a private street to the north. The subject property we are reviewing for the conditional use is zoned RS, single family residential. The RS zone allows churches as a special use within the zone, so there is no conflict for the allowed use within the RS zone. An aerial view of the subject property from 2016 shows the existing principal worship area for the church, the original fellowship building, and an existing youth building. Development surrounding the subject property includes residential uses to the north, south, and east, and the property to the west across Lansing Avenue Northeast is currently developed with Waldo Middle School. This slide, taken from Google Maps, shows the property in its current state, and the footprint of the original fellowship building is still noticeable. The damaged building was approved for demolition. I took photos of the site, and in this picture, you can see the area where the original fellowship hall was located adjacent to the existing parking lot. Here's another view of the original building location as seen from Sorensen Court Northeast. And this photo shows the original building location as seen from the property frontage along Lansing Avenue Northeast. As I mentioned before, a religious assembly use is a special use in the RS zone and would be allowed if it met all the special use standards in SRC Chapter 700 for special use. However, the subject property is approximately 3.8 acres in size and exceeds the maximum 2-acre lot standard for a religious assembly use in an RS zone, and the applicant has requested relief from this standard. In the staff report, we address the longevity of the church use and determine that retaining the property size will have minimal impacts on the surrounding properties. In addition, the applicant requested relief from the special use standard to reduce the landscape requirements for all lot area not developed with buildings, structures, parking, loading, and driveways. In order to mitigate that impact, staff recommends conditions of approval that that perimeter landscaping be provided. The subject property is located within the Lansing Neighborhood Association. No testimony was received from the Lansing from the Neighborhood Association. Staff received one letter from a surrounding property owner after the staff report was issued with concerns about existing damage on Sorensen Court Northeast from church traffic, no sidewalk along Sorensen, the lack of a stop sign at the parking lot exit to the north, as well as concerns about the lack of maintaining diseased or hazardous trees on site. Sorensen Court Northeast is an existing private street with private maintenance responsibilities, and the proposed development did not generate new vehicle trips that warrant any improvements to abutting streets. Proposed condition 4 is intended to address the non-permitted lawn vehicle parking. In addition to this condition, staff would like to recommend that the hearings officer address the neighbors' concerns about the non-permitted access from Sorensen Court Northeast being used for non-permitted lawn parking by amending condition 2 to require a 3-foot tall wall in the landscaping abutting Sorensen Court Northeast. To address the concerns about a lack of a stop sign and existing damaged trees on the site, staff recommends 2 additional conditions of approval. These conditions would require the installation of a stop sign at the parking lot exit adjacent to Sorensen Court Northeast, and that the applicant replace any dead, dying, or damaged existing trees or landscaping. This slide shows the locations for the proposed 3-foot tall landscape wall along Sorensen and the stop sign at the northern end of the parking lot. The applicant has also applied for a site plan review for construction of the proposed new fellowship building, new pedestrian access ways, and new bicycle parking. An application for site plan review shall be granted if the application meets all applicable standards of the Unified Development Code. The subject property consists of 3 parcels shown outlined in red on the applicant's site plan. The proposal does not meet the development standards for building setbacks abutting an RS zone, vehicle use area setbacks abutting interior property lines, pedestrian connections to Watson Avenue Northeast, and existing parking lot and street tree landscape requirements. Staff has addressed these standards as part of site plan review in the staff report and finds that the proposal would meet all standards of the UDC with conditions of approval that include consolidation of the subject property to remove existing interior property lines, installation of additional landscaping and street trees, and either a pedestrian connection to Watson Avenue Northeast or an application for an adjustment to this standard. Therefore, staff recommends you approve the conditional use and Class 3 site plan review permits subject to the recommended conditions of approval, including the 2 additional conditions that were recommended tonight. That concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, good. Could you send me at the close of the hearing a copy of your PowerPoint, please?
Absolutely.
And particularly as staff is recommending some modifications and additional conditions, that's
Sure.
Very useful to me.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. I don't have other questions right now, but we may come back as we are done with the applicant and public testimony. So
Okay.
I know you're listening anyway. And so would the applicant like to give a presentation? I think Mr. Lottard is.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
And I think you would like me to turn on my video as I do that.
It gives me someone to look at.
Well, this ugly face will just have to be all that you'll get then, I guess.
I think we're all just looking for human contact right now.
So we are. So we are. Following through on the presentation that Sally provided, I really am not going to take up 15 minutes worth of time. However, I did want to respond to a number of the conditions that that Sally has indicated in the staff report. And I should begin, first of all, by stating my address. Name and address is Leonard Lauder, architect. Address is 275 Court Street, Northeast, Salem, Oregon, 97301.
Thank you.
You earlier asked whether or not there was a concern about having the hearing. You know, I think Sally's aware of this. We did submit the conditional use application somewhat under protest. We felt that the existing or the Salem Revised Code actually provides an opportunity to reconstruct the building, and even with a certain amount of expansion of the size of that space, simply because of the building code requirements. And that is in fact all that's happening at the moment. The original building was about 6,000 square feet. The proposed building is a little over 7,500 square feet. Much of that area has been the result of meeting accessibility requirements within the space. There's really no increase in program within the space. Looking at the conditions, we are a little concerned about the added condition to condition number 2 in particular. We note that the suggestion of a 3-foot high masonry or concrete wall is the type of solution that's typically required to shield headlights, etc., as part of 806.350, I believe it is. And we note that there's no parking behind this wall, and therefore the primary reason why a wall like this would be used is already mitigated. The fact that we're going to be putting in landscaping to the type A standard along Sorensen should alleviate the problem that might have existed up to this point, where members of the congregation actually drove off of Sorensen onto the grassy area to the north of the youth building. Won't be able to do that over intensely landscaped area. The other condition that we express a little bit of concern about is condition 3, which indicates that we should provide a minimum of 12-foot setback along exterior property lines abutting residentially developed areas to a type B standard. No problem with the landscaping requirement. In fact, I believe that might already be in place. However, the portion of the previously developed site on the south side currently has parking that's at roughly between 5 and 6 feet from the property line. There was, with the replacement project, there was no intention to do site work involving changes to the parking facility at all, and doing so would actually substantially reduce the parking available for the site. And I don't believe that we have issues with the other conditions that were listed, including condition 9 and 10, which involve a stop sign and replacement of the trees. The so-called diseased trees were actually trees that were damaged during the ice storm. There's actually work being done, perhaps as we speak. I don't know. I was told that it was going to be happening this week or next in terms of cleaning that particular tree up. Okay. I would note that the church has been involved in planting trees, street trees, etc., along Lansing. They haven't fared well because of the local population. They seem to get destroyed, and it makes it difficult to find the kind of tree that would actually stand up to the kind of use that happens along Lansing at that location. There's both an elementary school and a middle school on the opposite side of the street that has an impact. And I guess the other item that we would like perhaps a little bit of clarification on is Watson Avenue currently dead ends into the east side of the site. Currently that site or that location has a sidewalk that does come up to the property line. There's an opening in the fence, and there are some students for each of the schools that actually do traverse the big playing field that's out there. There's a real concern that if the pedestrian connection that's being suggested here is a connection that actually has to be a concrete surface, that having that concrete surface in the middle of the playing field would be a real impediment. My client doesn't have any difficulty with kids using the playing field, both to get to school as well as for pickup soccer and baseball or softball. But putting a concrete walk through that site would be a real problem. I think that pretty much covers all of the items that I've got on here at the moment. So.
Okay. Well, I assume the reason that the condition on the pedestrian connection includes or get an exception probably is to address the concrete standard. But we can ask staff about that.
So, yes, that's exactly why, because it's connecting to a ball field. So there is the option for an adjustment. However, it's not necessary to run the connection right through the middle of the field. It could run along an exterior, property line and connect that way and go around the field. So there is that option as well. But it does have to be a minimum 5 feet in width and be some, a paved surface that meets public works standards.
While you're on, Ms. Long, would you like to talk about the concrete or masonry wall?
So we did suggest that to help mitigate the breakdown of Sorensen, from traffic pulling into there. We would require that it just be below vision clearance for the wall, just looking at a long-term way to keep people from pulling into that grassy area.
Okay. And then, I guess I do have some concerns if we have a landscaping condition that would remove parking from the site. Does that cause an off-street or an off-site parking problem on the streets nearby? So any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay, so I think it was condition 3, and the concern was that the 12-foot setback might interfere with some parking along, and now I've lost the street. I'm looking at my notes. On the south side.
Yes, that, the type B landscaping would also be the installation of the fence, the site obscuring fence, wall, or hedge. I know there is already landscaping along that south side to some degree. So if it could be filled in to make sure that either has the slats all the way around the fence or I mean, the property or, you know, to meet that standard.
I think the specific concern was that there would be some parking spaces that would get lost, and that's.
Mr.
So
Brewer, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
To amend that condition to type B landscaping along the perimeter for 12 feet where it's available. So I think the parking lot is closer than 12 feet. I'm not sure that when I looked at it even that I caught that. So the landscaped area along that parking lot should remain at type B landscaping, and then the remainder of the perimeter should be landscaped.
Okay.
Can I also make one clarification about the pedestrian path? So there's multiple adjustments that they could apply for to alleviate that. So they could not do concrete, they could do a soft surface, that would be an adjustment, or they could do an adjustment to alleviate it altogether.
Okay. So we've left some options there and I'll think about how a final condition might make sure that it's clear that we're not going to lose parking with that condition 3. That's that would be an off-site impact that would just I don't think anybody intended. So okay, anything else for the applicant? I'm sorry, Mr. Lauderdale, I may have cut you off there. I didn't intend to.
No, I think you managed to get it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go through. I don't think that we have anyone signed up from a neighborhood association. And Mr. Gay, I'm not going to presume whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition. So I'll ask, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the application? And is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? And then I have neutral, if that's a choice you'd rather have.
So this is Mr. Gay. I live at 3087 Sorensen Court, Northeast Salem, Oregon. And I'm in favor of the approval, but with the conditions. Speaking to the last thing first, I agree with Leonard on the uselessness of the concrete going through the middle of the field. If they're going to resurrect that as a ball field, it hasn't had a game played on it in years, but it used to have a lot of activity, and I'd love to see that continue, or have a community garden there or something, but that's here and there. They could go around the field, and that would suffice, in my mind, somebody who's in a wheelchair coming off Watson that wants to attend the church. That might be an important consideration. The Sorensen Court, between their entrance at the north and Lansing, I think a curb and sidewalk that connected to their other sidewalk they already have coming along their parking lot in Lansing would be beautiful there. Doesn't have to be a wall. It could be curb and sidewalk with landscaping behind it. And that would deter people from hopping the curb and using that. And then I'm assuming my only other issue really is the trees that have been in they've been diseased for 15 years. They've been falling over little by little. Sally's probably been out there and taking pictures of the stumps and whatnot. And the church has done a pretty good job of cleaning them up as they fall. But yet they continue to fall. There's sap running all over them. They are sick and diseased. They do need to come out, and I'm assuming that the A or the B standard on the landscaping is going to take care of that problem. Other than that, I really like to see them maintain any of that landscaping and the stop sign, so that Sorensen is safe and doesn't look terrible.
Okay. Very good. I think we've visited about each of those concerns and staff did a nice job, I think, of trying to put some things in place. I don't see a particular reason that the curb and sidewalk might not be an option for a concrete wall, but I'll return to staff for that. They may have some insight, and then we'll give the applicant an opportunity to do a little rebuttal if he would like. So thank you
Sure.
for your comments tonight, Mr. Gay.
Thank you.
So would you like me to respond to that, Jim?
I would.
Okay. So it would be great to be able to put a curb and sidewalk along that portion of the property. However, we couldn't condition a street improvement based on the trip count.
Mhm.
If the applicant is willing, we'd be, good to see that to the driveway.
So I guess my question would be, would that be an option uh, as I'm thinking about conditions for this? Would an option be you put in the 3-foot masonry or concrete wall, or you could do curb and sidewalk along there? Would those accomplish the same things?
Yes.
Because that's a private street, I'm thinking through this. That's a private street. Do we have a standard for that, or would that be a curbside or whatever kind of sidewalk I see Olivia has come on to.
Yes.
I'm assuming Sally will ask me to answer this question. So in our code, private streets have to be built to the same standard as a public street. There is some ambiguity there with some property lines for the private street. I don't think that would cause an issue since it's all private. The only thing I would say is it would have to be built to our standard. We can probably look at some design exceptions through the Public Works Division, but it would be maintained privately.
And that would just be on their side of the private street. They wouldn't, I want to make sure I understand that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Lauder, you get an opportunity for rebuttal, although that wasn't necessarily testimony in opposition. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of visit about this same idea and whether that's something that would work for you.
There we are. Yeah, I guess the concern that I have is that we're dealing with a church that is doing a development at the moment largely because of an arsonist. They had no desire to get into a building program.
Yeah.
And they are working hard to get the arrangements made so that the cost of the work can be covered by the insurance proceeds that they had in place. They're certainly not in a position where they could afford to even do a significant fundraising program right now. And my concern is that both the wall as well as the street improvements are really, I don't have dollar figures for that cost at the moment, but I could see that becoming a significant hardship for them. And so that's the primary reason why I'd be hesitant to just sort of agree to it, because I know the resources they're working with, and they're dealing with it at a time when the cost of building is substantially higher than it was, 12 months ago, 18 months ago. And their capacity to take that on and to borrow actually in order to make this even work is not particularly great. So
yeah, I don't really want to put in place a condition that is going to cause a failure here. I want to have an impossible condition for them.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to suggest is this: the applicant gets an opportunity to make a final written argument.
Okay.
And you get an extra week to do that. We can close the hearing tonight, which would give you an opportunity to kind of visit with your clients and take a hard look, maybe with staff also, at that particular condition. And let's see if we can come up with something that can work there. That can get submitted to me, and then I've got something to work with.
Okay, that's fair. Sure.
Does that work for staff?
Certainly, that's fine.
Okay, so with that, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank everyone for their testimony and their conversation tonight. This is an important part of the public process, and it's how we get it to work. So the city really appreciates that. The applicant will get an additional 7 days. That's written in anyway for final written argument. That'll be, I'm looking at the calendar, Shelby, that would be 5 o'clock, March 17th.
Correct.
Good. I'm able to keep track of days anyway. Again, thank everyone for their efforts tonight. Thank you, staff. You did a thorough job. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Nice to see everyone.
Night.